Everyone, this is Brandon with Recast Software, and today we're going to walk through installing Recast Management Server with Recast Proxy. So as far as prerequisites go, you'll want at least 4 cores of dedicated CPU, 8 gigabytes of memory, Windows Server 2012 R2 or later, IIS, ASP.NET 4.7, the .NET Core hosting bundle, and if you don't have this, Recast Management Server will install this if it's not present, and just notating that this should be installed after IIS. Any licensed version of SQL. If you don't have permission to create a SQL database during the install, you can pre-create the SQL database. Ideally, you'd have somebody with the ability to create a SQL database run the installer for you. And you'd want to download the latest version of the Recast Management Server by logging into the portal, which is here, portal.recastsoftware.com. Cool, let's hop into the install. So I've got the Recast Management Server installer here. Double click to start. Click next. It's going to be your IIS configuration. You can click next. This is where you'd select a cert for the Recast Management Server. There's 2 different ways you can do a certificate with Recast Management Server. The first is to use an already existing, or you can generate a self-sign. If you use a certificate that has been signed by a CA, you won't need to deploy it to all of the machines that you're also deploying agents to. If it's not signed by a CA, then you just need to deploy that same cert to the machines within their trusted certificate store. So we're going to create a self-sign cert. And this is on the same machine. So for almost every organization, the default port is going to be 1433. Something to keep in mind. My license is already recognized on the machine, so that's here. Otherwise, you can sign in and click download. Whoops. There we go. Cool. This will be for the proxy. And let's take a look at the proxy requirements here before we actually go to this step. So the proxy will require a pre-created service account. There's a few different ways you can use the proxy. If you're just going to use it for things like the dashboard and populating scopes, this is the requirements that you'd want. It's the minimum requirements: local admin on the server where it's installed, read-only analyst and configuration manager console, data beta reader and configuration manager database, and read permissions in Active Directory. If you'd like to use the service account to grant additional permissions for users that don't have elevated permissions, like if you wanted to actually run the actions using the service account, we recommend using it needs local admin on the device that the actions will be run against, as well as all of these. Read write permissions in Active Directory, the appropriate configuration manager security role for the intended actions in configuration manager console. If you didn't want to limit this at all, you just give it full administrator security role within configuration manager. Permissions to MBAM if applicable. So that would likely just be the domain admin's AD group if you wanted to be able to pull keys and things like that. And then for endpoint insights users, you'll want all the minimum requirements, as well as if your Recast Management Server is installed on a server other than your configuration manager SQL database, the proxy account will need access to the DDM box. This location varies depending on the configuration, but the easiest way to get that is to give the proxy account local access to the SMS underscore site system to site server connection underscore MP underscore your site code local group on that server. That will allow you to read write to the inbox's auth DDM box, which is required to gather warranty data using the management server and proxy. Cool. So I've got an account pre-created with required permissions. Test looks good. And click next. If you're not planning on installing a proxy right away, that's totally okay. You can click to not install Recast Proxy and go on to the next steps. You can always install it later. There's a standalone installer for it, so no worries. We'll test the connection to my domain. That looks good. We'll test all of my configuration manager details here. Everything looks good. I don't have NBAM configured in my environment, but if you did, you can click anywhere in this gray box and then fill in the appropriate information. I'm going to click install. Awesome. Looks like the installation is complete. It'll copy the URL into your clipboard, so you can either paste it into a modern browser or you can click here. You just want to make sure that you're using a browser other than Internet Explorer, so Chrome, Firefox, Mozilla. Sorry, Chrome, Firefox, Edge, they're all fine. App admin. Cool, so we're inside of the management server. The first thing you want to do, and just to note, when you log into the web browser, you'll want to log in with the same exact credentials that were used to complete the installation of Recast Management Server. Once you're logged in, you'll want to go to your permissions tab right away. Here we can see recast users, recast roles, and recast scopes. The first thing we're going to want to do is add the users that are going to be accessing the Recast Management Server, or right-click tools connected to the Recast Management Server. So I'm just going to add my lab admin account here. And then once you add the account, sorry, let me take a step back. When you're adding a user, it's going to have to be exactly what's an ID, or you can use wildcards to help you find a user account. So if you type in a name that's close and it's not finding it, you can add wildcards at the front and the back, and it'll make it a little bit easier. So added the user, I'm going to edit on the right, and we're just going to give it an administrator's role with all scopes. Move me out of the way here. And this is going to make it so none of the recast actions are limited. So if you like right click in the console, nothing will be grayed out for you. So I've got my user account added. It's got an administrator role. If you wanted to create custom permissions in the future, you could create a role here. You could call it help desk. If you click on permissions, you have a bunch of different options as far as the right click tools go that you can customize here. So if you only wanted them to be able to do specific actions, this is where you'd select the actions that they can do. We'll talk a little bit more about that in another video, just because there's so many different actions to choose from, but it's helpful to know that the option is there. Cool. So next we're going to take a quick look at our settings. And the first thing that I recommend doing is adding your SQL database. So click edit, and my SQL database is actually going to be fig. Oops. Yep. This is my config manager SQL database here. Cool. So that's added, and then the config manager server. For me, it's on my primary site server, so cool. That's added. If you have NBAM, you'd want to add it here. If you have ServiceNow, you'd want to edit your service URL here. This will allow you to do some actions within right-click tools, like that are ServiceNow related. So if you wanted to go to the instance for the device, if you have the URL here, you can do that, which is really helpful. The Recast Management Server, Recast Agent Approval. Recast agents are used to elevate permissions. They're used to collect non-warranty information for endpoint insights. By default, it's going to automatically approve any agents in the trusted domain. You can change this. The only thing to note is if you change it to manual, you'll have to manually approve each agent that's trying to connect. So if you're in an environment with lots of agents, there's ways to fix it, but it's better to leave it at 1 in most scenarios. If we take a look at the maximum audit log age, which is right here, the default is going to be 000000, which essentially means that everything that is logged for the audit log is going to basically save indefinitely. So if you don't have a lot of space on your SQL database, or you're not interested in logs over a very long period of time, you can change this. So for example, if I wanted to do 7 days, I could do 07, 000000, and then max snapshot age. As you start to get into web dashboards and trends within the management server, it'll start taking snapshots at different intervals to populate the trends that you're looking into. These are images. They take up a bit more space than the audit log stuff. So for most organizations, I would recommend putting a time to expire where like the snapshots are deleted from the server. Really depends on your situation, but for me, I'll do 30 days. So 30 days would look like this: day, hour, minutes, seconds. And then as far as the management service settings go, that looks good for the initial configuration. We're going to go to scopes. This next part, scopes are useful everywhere, but I'm going to go over scopes and routes and then talk a little bit about endpoint insights. So scopes are basically targeting a location to pull in information from. So we're going to create a scope here. The first scope that I'm going to create is it's just going to be my AD domain. So and the proxy account is what actually pulls in the scopes. So we're going to create this. It's going to show populated as false. We're also going to create a scope for configuration manager, site, and the site code is just going to be that three-digit code. And the SMS providers almost every time is going to be the primary server. So for me, that's this. And we can see up here that there's no agent found to route the action to. That's totally okay. We're going to create a route for the proxy to actually pull in this information. So awesome. So if we take a look at our proxies, we can see that the one that I set up during the installation is listed as connected and authorized, which is exactly what we want to see. If we go to routes, we can create a route for our proxy here. And the way that routes work is it's a priority system. So by default, the recast agent is going to be at the top of the priority. So if there's a recast agent installed on any device that you attempt to run an action against, it's going to try and use the recast agent route first. If it's not there, it'll go down to the right-click tools route, which is whatever user is signed in the configuration manager console. It's going to use those credentials to run the action. Anything below the right-click tools route is not going to be used to run the action. So for example, we're going to create a route for our service account so that it can populate those scopes. Here's the service account. We'll give it the role of administrators, and we're going to scope it for all. So any routes can go through the service count here. So click Save. If we go back to scopes, we can see these are false. If I click Repopulate, they update to true. If we go to Audit Log, you can see all of the actions that have been completed. If we look at devices in scope, just an example, if we view the results of getting the scope, we can see them all pulled in here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to come down to warranty. This is just for Endpoint Insights users, but if you click on Start EI Warranty Scan, now that we have the scopes, it'll attempt to pull in all the warranty information for you using the proxy account. So Endpoint Insights, warranty related reports, you can start the EI warranty scan or it'll run every night around midnight. So cool. Then if we go to logging, this will log everything real time. So if you want to switch to debug, it'll give you a little bit more information. You can troubleshoot stuff that's going on. If you want to download it, you can download everything that's on the logging tab, or you can click clear if you want to go back and capture a specific moment. So it can be super helpful for troubleshooting. If you go to licenses, this is where you'd upload your license if it expires. So if you need to expire, click upload, find the license, upload it. And then anyone that connects to the Recast Management Server from right-click tools, and the way that looks is like this. So if we go to Recast Software, we can see that in Configuration Manager Console, I'm not currently connected to a remote server. So we're going to go into Configure Recast. We're going to add the server name here. Click Save. Close. Relaunch the console. Click on the Recast Software node. And we can see that it's connected. Awesome. That is a brief overview of the Recast Management Server. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.